Hey, we're just getting off a week of sports camp, and we just had a great week with our kids, and we wanted to fill you in on what happened throughout that week. And so we have a great video that's bringing all the highlights of that week to you. And so let's roll this.
Hey, I'm Mike Bryce, been going to Southgate for about 5 years, speaking at sports camp for 4 years. Absolutely love it, love the opportunity to work with the kids, see them transform, change. And the cool thing of being here for 4 years is you see the kids grow from, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, and see them start to mature in their faith, mature in their walk with God.
We had never been involved in this before, and what's kind of hit me is the enormity of it all. It's kind of how big and how many kids are involved, and just the kind of impact it has the possibility of making on our community. And I think it's pretty neat because a lot of the kids that I'm seeing, I might know them from other places and sports and hockey and such things like that, but they're not church kids, and they're here having fun and they're playing sports, and they're having a really good time doing that, but they're learning about Jesus at the same time.
And so, man, I loved that video because it highlighted some of the great moments of sports camp, and the best moment of all was seeing the kids screw in light bulbs. And man, it's so exciting to see that 23 kids gave their lives over to Jesus. And I was so proud of the coaches because they put so much work, they put so much effort into this thing, and it's just exciting to see them use their gifts to minister to kids. And so, man, what a great week. Bravo to everyone who was a part of that. I was just a privilege to see that and see people using their gifts that God has given them. Now, coming out of sports camp, it kind of got me thinking about parenting, and I thought, today would be a great opportunity to talk about parenting. And if you're a parent, you probably have like the go-to books at bedtime, and we have those. I mean, sometimes it's the Bernstein Bears, sometimes it's Dr. Seuss, and Dr. Seuss, I mean, he's super famous. Almost every single person has a Dr. Seuss book in their home. And one of the most famous Dr. Seuss books is Oh, the Places You'll Go. Do you remember that? I mean, do you have that book sitting in your home? I mean, a lot of us do. And it's an interesting book because it talks about, the places you'll go, like the places that you'll travel to, the things that you'll see, and kind of dreaming a little bit like that. But Dr. Seuss is fascinating because there's a lot of interesting things about his life that nobody really knows. In fact, one of those would be that Dr. Seuss and his wife actually couldn't have children. He never had kids. And here he was writing all these kids' books. And people would ask him, how do you write all these children books without actually having kids of your own? And you know what his response was? His response was this: you have the kids, and I will entertain them. All right, that was his response. And he captivated audience and captivated children in the books that he wrote for them. And the situation that Dr. Seuss found himself in by not being able to have kids kind of reminded me of the group that's here today. I mean, you're watching here today, and there's all kinds of different situations that we find ourselves in. I mean, some of you can have kids, but others of you can't have kids. There are people here who want to have kids but can't. There's people who have a lot of kids and don't want as many. There's people who have adopted children. There's people who have fostered kids. There's people who are raising other people's kids. There are grandparents who've just started being grandparents. There are people who have kids moving back home, right? Then there are parents who have kids who are moving out. Or maybe you're like the situation Emily and I find ourselves in. We have the opportunity this year to welcome an exchange student. So we will be parenting for the first time a 17-year-old. We all come from different situations, and they are different places and different kind of techniques we got to use in our parenting skills. But one thing, and in fact, I think a couple things that I would say are true no matter what situation you find yourself in parenting, there's a couple things that really all of us share in common. And so I'm going to go to the TV and I'll highlight some of those things for you. See, the first one is this. We have no idea what we're getting ourselves into. We have no idea what we're getting ourselves into. And that's interesting to me because I used to think I knew what I was getting myself into. I mean, I actually thought I knew how to parent. I thought I might have been prepared. We were waiting for the time. Yeah, this would be a good time to have kids because I'm going to be prepared now. And now that we have 3 kids, it's like we don't have any theories. And in fact, everything has gone out of the window. We don't know really what we're doing about parenting. We're trying our best. We're trying to learn. But the reality is we have no idea what we're getting ourselves into when it comes to parenting. And man, this comedian, Michael McIntyre, he does a great bit on this. And so check this out.
And the people who don't have children, they think they know, don't they? They think they know. They know what it means to have children. Sometimes they chat about it, don't they, in their little couples? You know, oh, I'd love to start a family one day with you. It'd be lovely. You'd make a really good dad. Oh, I think you'd be an amazing mum. Wouldn't it be so lovely having little versions of you and me running around? I'd love to have a family. And you think you know what you're talking about. You have no idea. You have no idea what it's like. You have no idea how difficult things will become in your life. Things that you don't even consider to be things will become nearly impossible when you have children. I'm talking about things like leaving the house, for example. This is how people without children leave the house. Shall we leave the house? Yes. This is how I leave the house almost every day. Lucas, Oscar, come downstairs. We're late. Why aren't you downstairs? Put your shoes on. I don't know where my shoes are. Put your shoes on. Go and find your shoes. Where did you see them last? On my feet. After that, get your shoes on. Come here, come here. Arms up, arms in, arms in, arms up, arms in. That's my wife. She's so tired, she can't dress herself. Arms in. What arms, darling? Where are we going? I want to go to bed. Sleeping. Sleeping at night. This is how people without children. Yeah, most nights, yeah. Good night, darling. Good night. Good night. Sometimes you go, sleep well, and the other one goes, I will. I will. That's how cocky, how arrogant you are. I know I will. Good night, darling. Have a good sleep. Good night. It's been a long time since my wife and I said good night to each other, okay? Now we just go, good luck. Good luck to each other. All through the night, they're screaming, Daddy, 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 Mommy. Sometimes they just wake up wide awake in the middle of the night. I'm asleep, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I wake, you know, when sometimes you don't realise it, but you sort of half open your eyes. Sometimes when you're asleep, I half open my eyes, my son is in my face.
And so that's the first one, right? We have no idea what we're getting ourselves into. But the second one is this. We all have places that we want our children to go. We all have places that we want our children to go. And that's important here because if you're anything like me, I mean, you did have a preference of whether you wanted a boy or a girl before you had kids. If you're able to have kids, you said, I want to have a boy or I want to have a girl, and maybe you had dreams or desires about the places that you wanted that child to go. Now, for Emily and I mean, we had our first boy, we had Brayson, and when he came out, I didn't even announce what gender he was. I was just like, Emily, we have a future NHL player, and it's like I wanted him to be this thing that ultimately I wanted maybe more than he wanted because he's just a baby, right? We have this mindset of the places we want our kids to go, and it's interesting because we don't really have a plan for our kids to get there. I mean, we want them to go and achieve things. We want to help them achieve success, but What is our plan to get them to achieve success? I mean, how are you going to do that? And how are you going to do that by the way that you parent your kids? Do you have a plan in place? Is that something that you have it together for your kids to get wherever they're going? See, success, it's not a goal. And you got to realize that. Success is a byproduct. It's not something that just instantly happens. I mean, think about any other area of life. Do you become a stellar husband or wife overnight? I mean, do you achieve success in your marriage by just like thinking or dreaming it up? No, it takes years of practice of serving your wife or your husband in order to have a great marriage. You don't just have it off the bat out of nowhere. Or what about this? I mean, becoming wealthy or managing your money. You don't just kind of achieve that overnight out of the blue. It takes years and years of investing and making wise choices and possibly taking risk and honoring God in your finances in order for you to be wealthy someday. Or a person doesn't get to the NHL happenstance, right? You have to take years and years of dedication and practice and have the skills necessary in order to be able to do that. It just doesn't happen overnight because success is not a goal, it is a byproduct. And the same is true in parenting. Successful parenting doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, right? It takes time. It takes years and years of practice. And the things that I do as a dad and the things that Emily does as a mom over time affects our success as parents. And so I want to point you to the Bible, right? And enough of me kind of jumping into my own life. Let me point you to the Bible. And what the Bible has to say is found in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 2. And so you can pull the auditorium Bibles out today. You can turn to Proverbs chapter 2. And man, I love the book of Proverbs because what it does for me is it helps me, maybe a person that is not the smartest, it helps me look smart. Proverbs is like one of those awesome books that makes a dumb person look really smart because it's full of wisdom. And how it's written is from a father to a son type of point of view. It's just loaded with jam-packed nuggets of gold. And we're going to jump into that. And this book of Proverbs is basically where we find our entire Kemptville ministry. It's based out of this one verse. Now, we're going to be studying Proverbs 2, but our children's ministry is based on Proverbs 22, verse 6. And here's what it says. It says this: start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Everything that we do kind of points to that. It's training a child up from the time they are young to the point when they're about to graduate high school, and that we are instilling values and truths and morals so that they're ready for that point. But let's jump into today's passage. It's found in Proverbs chapter 2, drawing your attention to verses 1 to 8. And here's what it says. You can follow along with me in the auditorium Bibles here today. It says this: "My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding, indeed, if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, and if you look for it as silver and search for it as a hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He holds success in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless. For he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones." And so Solomon is the writer of this passage here. And we're going to go with the theme of Dr. Seuss. We'll just call him Dr. Solomon for this instance. And what he is saying is he's saying, listen, parents, to these four main priorities. And here they are. Be upright in your parenting, be blameless in your parenting, be just in your parenting, and be faithful in your parenting. And when you do all these things, check out what verse 9 says in this passage. It says this: this is the outcome. "Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path." That's how you get your wisdom. You walk upright and blameless and just and faithful. and things will become clear, and your path will become straight. And so the priority is this. You see, I think Dr. Solomon has a little more wisdom than Dr. Seuss. And Dr. Seuss might have got it wrong a little bit in the understanding of the book and the places you'll go, because really what I think the focus has to be is this. We need to focus on the people they can be, not the places they will go. The people they will be, not the places that they'll go. And that is so vital in parenting. Because God is not looking at the places that they will go. What God is doing is He's looking at the people that they will become. You see, we live in a society where people look at the next generation and they say, oh man, the next generation, oh, the places that generation will go, the things that they will discover. Oh, I'm so excited about the places that they will go. But God looks at the next generation and God says, you know what? Look at this next generation. Look at the people that they will become. Look at the purpose that I have for them. Look at the people that they could be. And I think sometimes as parents, we are looking for the next spotlight in our kids when God is looking for the next upright in our kids, right? And I think maybe sometimes what we are doing, we are looking for the next success story in our kids when God is looking for the next surrender story in our kids. And He is looking at the personal development of our children rather than the places that they will go in their lives. He cares more about who you are when you show up than the places that you're going to go. And when it comes to parenting, we have to focus on the people that they can be rather than the places that they'll go. You got to. And that's got to be the priority in this. And so in Proverbs, looking at chapter 2 is one thing, but if we turn to chapter 3, I think we see three main points when it comes to parenting and fostering and focusing this idea of understanding the people our children can be rather than the places that they can go. And it really highlights this in chapter 3. If you want to turn there with me, it brings up three main points. Solomon pens out three main points in this idea. And it's this: time, prayer, and fear. And so let's unpack that a little bit. If you want to turn with me to chapter 3, see, we got time. And that's important because what we do with our kids is far more important than what we do for our kids. Do you get that? Like what we do with our kids is far more important than what we do for them. For instance, right? I can bring home a gift for my kids when I've gone away and traveled somewhere, and I can bring them a little toy or a little stuffy or maybe a little bit of candy or something like that. You know what my kids want from me when I get home from a trip? Yeah, they would love candy, they'd love a little toy, but you know what they really want? They want to spend time with their dad. They want me to roughhouse with them. They want me to go wrestle with them. They want to have fun with me. They want to do things with me. And so often we give them things rather than give them our time. And when you give them things, it's almost like you're trying to put a Band-Aid on something that you can't provide for them. And that's your time. That's what kids want. And what if the time that you spend in the car on the way to hockey practice or ballet or dance or soccer or t-ball, what if that time in the car is more valuable than the actual hockey practice or t-ball game or whatever it is? What if the time you spend with your child was more important than the time that you send them to or the things that you give them? And so, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how it works out in your life. I can tell you what I do in my life. The very simplest way is that I get up very early to start work very early. I try to get into the office for 6 a.m., and the reason that I do that is so that I'm home at 3 every single day. And I get home at 3, and the first thing that I do is I play with my kids. I know that they want my time. I know that they get home from school, and I go on the trampoline, or we go and play baseball outside, or we go and shoot Nerf guns, or we go and play a game, but I'm doing something with them, and I'm with them for the dinner table, around the dinner table, and I want to cherish that time. I want to value that time that I have for them. And I don't know what that is for you, I don't know how that works out in your life, but for me, I want to make that priority, the time that I could spend with them. And then at the dinner table, we talk about what has happened in our day. What was a great thing about your day? What was a hard thing about your day? And then again, when we go to bed, we pull out the Bible, we read the Bible together, and we pray. And I ask them, hey, can I pray for you? Is there anything I can pray for you, Beckett? Is there anything I can pray for you, Brayson? And then we do count your blessing right before bed. We say, count your blessings, name them one by one, count, and we sing the song, right? And we sing the song, and then we hear, what was your blessing today? Because every day has a blessing. And so, Brayson, what was your blessing today? Beckett, what was your blessing today? And how did that affect you today? And then we're ready for bed. Those are simple ways that we implement that into our lives in spending time with our kids. But what is that for you? And do you have a plan in place? That is time. But what about prayer? See, Solomon pens out that prayer is an important task in chapter 3. And here's what it says. If you look at chapter 3, right at the beginning here, here's what it says in verse 3, chapter 3. It says, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Probably one of the most well-known scriptures in all the Bible, right? A lot of people have heard that very well-known passage. And listen, you will never be a perfect parent. I could give 100 sermons on this, and I will never be a perfect parent. You just never will. And that is why prayer is so important. Because you don't have all the answers. And I don't have all the answers. And there's a lot of things that I don't know that I wish I did. And there's a lot of things that I hoped I'd be that I'm not. And there's a lot of things I thought I'd know, but I don't know. And that's when you need prayer, because we all have parent fails, right? There's this bit that Jimmy Fallon does, and he tweets out, parent fail, hashtag parent fail. And people reply to the hashtag of stories, little Twitter stories that they can post about ways they've failed as parents, and it's hilarious. I totally relate to this, and so check this out.
He says, the guard fell off the clippers when my mom was giving me a haircut. She filled in the bald spot with a magic marker. Yeah, that's obvious, a bit obvious.
Fail or win.
She says, my dad told me the ice cream truck played music when all the ice cream was gone.
Again.
Genius!
Not
That
a
is
fail.
genius.
That's a win.
That's a win. That is
That's
a genius.
parent win.
That is a brilliant. I don't want
Yeah.
to get up. I don't want to get off the couch.
Well, that means they're gone, honey.
They're gone. They're gone.
Why are you
This one's from @Mrs. Lauren Thomas. She says, I put sunscreen on my 4 kids, but one came back burnt. Turns out I lathered one kid up twice. There you go. Not paying attention.
Get
over here. This one's from @LikePictionary. He says, I didn't know my dad had shaved his mustache off, so when he came to pick me up from first grade, I thought I was being abducted. This one's from @Joe Campbell. He says, my dad's a horrible speller. One Christmas, my sister got a present from Satan. I'll open this later.
And I love that. I can totally relate, maybe not the writing like from Satan thing on my kids' presents, but I totally relate with what just happened there, because I see parent fails in my life all the time. But what I love about God and what I love about his word is that those places that we feel like we failed as parents, and this affects even the people whose kids have gone on, right? The places that we feel like we failed as parents, I really believe that God can succeed in those places. And so focus time in your kid's life is so important. Focus prayer, because ultimately we know we fail as parents. But the third thing is this: focused fear. And check this out in verse 6 of chapter 3. It says this: do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. And so what does this actually mean? Does this mean that we need to be afraid of God? Is that what this verse is saying, that we got to be afraid of God? No, it's not saying that we need to be afraid of God. Actually, what this verse is meaning is this fear that it's saying is actually more like a love. It's almost like an obedience. It's saying We have to be open and willing. This love and trust of God, we love and trust Him so much that I will go and do whatever God wants me to do. I will go where He goes. I will stay where He wants me to stay. I will do whatever He wants me to do. And Solomon knew the importance of that as a dad communicating this to his son. He understood that this verse was so important because he knew kids' futures are so connected to parents' faith. See, Solomon isn't just talking about the fear of the Lord to his son. He's demonstrating the fear of the Lord to his son. Which brings me to this question for you. What do your kids see that you fear? Let me put it a different way. What do your kids see that you love? And if we were to ask your kids, what would your kids say that is number one in your life? What's a priority for you? Or the things that you sign them up for? Or the things that you put your time and your money into? The things that are valuable to you as a parent? Is it fostering the places that they'll go or the people that they will become? And does your lifestyle communicate that? Because make no mistake, your kids are watching everything you do. Every conversation you got, the ways that you spend your money, and the ways that you spend your time, and what you make them go to, and what you don't make them go to, and how you serve in the church, and how you don't serve in the church, and how many Sundays you don't go to the church because you want to sleep in, or how many Sundays they don't go to the kids program. It's all communicating something, and what is it communicating? The places that they'll go or the people that they'll become. And so if you didn't get anything out of this today, I want you to leave with this. The future you get is in the God that you fear. And another way to put that is, the future you get is in the God that you love. And is God number one in your life? Because that's got to communicate something to your kids. And if you want your kids to go places and to be someone, what future are you giving them in the way that you love God? See, where in your life does God want to bless you and your kids? But He can't. Because you fear or you love something more than Him. And you've put something else number one instead of where God should be. See, as a parent, we got to focus our time and our prayer and our fear on our kids to help them become the people they can be so that God can take them to the places He would have them go. I'm going to turn it over to the campus pastor.